Okay, going over some news of the day. The first thing I want to cover here is an interview I saw yesterday on CBC. It's quite amazing. It's David Cochrane talking to an Indigenous leader, and watch how many times he kind of softballs around the question of, can we build a pipeline, yes or no? I would say he treats the person with total kid gloves. It's kind of comical. It's also kind of sad. Let's take a look.
We begin in British Columbia, where today Prime Minister Mark Carney met with coastal First Nations to discuss major projects. The meeting comes after the federal government signed a memorandum of understanding with Alberta, which includes a path forward for a possible oil pipeline and the lifting of an oil tanker ban along BC's north coast. Gaagwiis Jason Alsop is president of the Haida Nation, and he joins me now. Gaagwiis, it's good to see you again. Thank you for being here, sir.
Hi, David. Good afternoon. Good to be here.
Based on your comments when you came out of the meeting, it's very clear your position hasn't changed on an oil pipeline. I'm curious whether the Prime Minister or anyone else tried to convince you to change your mind in your conversations today.
So that's where it's framed, right? That this guy opposes an oil pipeline, which is so ridiculous. The fact that we have to sit here and debate this is such a waste of time. The correct framing, or the correct way that Canada should move forward with this, which should be, we're building the pipeline, okay? Whether you like it or not, it's happening. So how do we work together? So you can get what you want. Canada can get what it needs. Lisa Raitt, what is that? MRAS, what are you talking about? Is there an interview with her? This is with an Indigenous leader here in Cochrane.
No, it was a very productive meeting with the Prime Minister today. And like he said, it was really about building relationships and starting a face-to-face dialogue around areas that we can find alignment and where we can work together amongst the coastal nations and Canada.
Where were things, though, on the idea of...
Okay, last night on CBC. I'll check that out. Thank you. Is that on CBC?
Of the bitumen pipeline to Prince Rupert, of lifting the tanker ban, because the Prime Minister, his key ministers, members of the government talk about this as a national imperative, the need to get this economic activity in the face of what Donald Trump is doing. What was
Hello, Dave. How are you doing today?
The message from the government to you and the others in the room on that front today, sir?
Well, the message from the government was that, there is a commitment to building a relationship, to the journey of reconciliation. Yeah,
thank you, MRAS. I'll check that out right after this. Thank you. Like one of those panels, that'll be good. But yeah, I definitely want to cover this interview because it's absurd. Like he just keeps getting these softball questions, and I don't understand exactly why this happens. I don't know what we're doing. I think there's so much pandering to, no offense, I literally think that's the correct word, to these First Nations I think people have gotten so comfortable with just bending over to whatever they want to do.
And finding areas of alignment. I think there was also more
Yeah, I've been better too, Dave, actually. I don't feel that good myself.
Clarity from the Prime Minister's office around his major projects office and his process for how that work is to unfold, and some productive discussions around, what that looks like in terms of free, prior, and informed consent and UNDRIP, and how that could be done in a way that does seek consent.
So what clarity did they give you on that front? Because I know this has been something people are wondering about, right? That consultation is not a veto, and approval and consent are consultation and consent are different things, is how a lot of people are talking about it. How did the Prime Minister explain to you today how he views those principles?
See, it just sounds like you could ask the question, can we build the pipeline or not, man? Why don't you just ask it like that? They give these people such leeway. Like there's, I think, way too much respect shown. Would any other group get on television that want to block a pipeline and get these kind of softball questions constantly? Like, I don't know. This makes no sense to me.
Well, obviously there's a...
I agree, MRAS. I agree, man. Like, this is just absurd. It's gotten to the point, in my opinion, that these First Nations, I'm not saying all Indigenous people, but it's certainly these Indigenous leaders, I think get treated above everybody else, which is ridiculous.
Well, obviously there's a legal requirement to
Like
consult.
this guy talking may be a very well-meaning, nice person, but I think these First Nations leaders, I'm not signaling him out specifically, but I mean, they should be made fun of because their position is very anti-Canada for sure.
And accommodate as the bare minimum, but ultimately that we need to work together and that we need to form relationships, and that, you know, we were clear about our position that we would like the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act to stay in place, but there are other things we got to look at in terms of the other nation building projects that were announced and the impacts those have on the territory and the positive work we could do together. And I think it was clear that just because projects do make that list, there still is a process to go through. There's still a lot of work to actually get to a project delivery. And although there's
What is this attitude? Oh, we need to build relationships. We need to do all this stuff. Like, this is just so absurd, I think. Can you imagine if President Trump was the leader of Canada, what his position would be on stuff like this? I mean, he would just be like, okay, we're building the pipeline. It's being built. It's already being built right now. I'm on the phone with this company. A lot of people try to say too, like, oh, there's no private proponent for these pipelines, this pipeline specifically. I don't see how that's possible. If there was the correct, like legal guarantees and stuff like that, there's no way that there's millions of not millions of companies, but there's so many companies that are all trying to make money at any given time. It makes no sense that there wouldn't be a private company that would want to build this pipeline. I just do not understand how that could possibly be the case.
For action to respond to the economic challenges, there's still process, there's still due diligence and a lot of good work that needs to happen.
There were some measures today based on the statements coming from both sides of the conversation on extending funding for the Oceans Protection Plan Reconciliation Framework Agreement, extending the leases on towboats, for lack of a better term. These sorts of things to focus on coastal protection in the wake of the concerns of the increased economic activity from the other projects. But what was your sense, Gaguis, on...
Are you saying for Trump and Venezuela, Dave? Is that what you're talking about? Like with not getting an oil? I think, Dave, you're probably more left wing, which I'm cool with that, obviously. But is that fair to say or no?
How determined the federal government is to see a pipeline that goes to the Northwest Coast? Did you get the sense that this is a true imperative and priority for them, or an option they are merely considering?
Yeah, like you just ask it so softly. This is just so incredible that it's like he's so afraid to offend this person.
The federal government is to see a pipeline that goes to the Northwest Coast. Did you get the sense that this is a true imperative and priority for them, or an option?
Come on, of course it's a priority. Why are you starting there? This is such a waste of time.
They are merely considering.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we focused again on the areas of alignment. My sense is it is, obviously it's an option and was put on the.
Obviously, this interview, the entire interview is around one question: pipeline or no? But all the frickin', like, I don't even know what the word is, just pussyfooting around the question is insane.
Table in the MOU with Alberta and something considering the challenges.
Yeah, somewhat I am at the moment. Whatever, that's fine. I like, I'm more right wing, but I love hearing other point of views.
Economic challenges and the relationship with the United States is something he needs to consider to be a responsible leader. But ultimately, we focused a lot of the dialogue around, again, these other nation building projects that were announced, and really making clear that outside of the pipeline, with existing projects, existing shipping traffic, and the proposed increases exponentially over 217% in the coming years, the coast is not prepared for the existing traffic, let alone introducing something like bitumen tankers.
So in terms of dealing with that issue, because I know this was a concern you raised when we last spoke, I believe when you were here for the vote on the on one of the pipeline votes in Parliament, beyond the expansion of the funding for the protection plan, what sort of progress are you going to see, do you think, or were you promised coming out of this on those areas of alignment to better protect the coastline from what's going to be pretty robust activity, whether or not there is a pipeline?
Yeah, well, we'll leave it up to the government to make their formal announcements on things, but I think what was landed.
No one in watching this interview cares about anything other than the pipeline. Everything else the reporter just asked is totally secondary to the question. This entire interview should be like, why don't you want to build the pipeline? Why? Explain why. Tell Canadians your rationale. Is it climate change? Do you think it's just annoying? Do you think the pipeline doesn't look good?
Our side was for him to get grounded in the coast.
Him to get grounded in the coast. Like, man, these are conversations you can have if you want around a campfire. Like, oh, I'm getting grounded in the coast. Why are you talking about that on national news? I blame both people in this interview for doing this. It's not like I'm blaming one person for this.
In the realities that we face as coastal communities, as nations, and to understand that that work is imperative. So it does allow us to be able to actually implement the agreements that we already have in a hopefully a faster and a more effective way to address our current challenges and prepare for future increases in shipping. So I think it was, as he said, it was a relationship building meeting. It wasn't about big announcements and that work necessarily. But
what's the point then? He's the prime minister. Is a relationship building meeting. Dude, what is the point? Canada just has to shift towards what one First Nation, their customs and their traditions. The entire country has to go along with this.
Obviously, we touched on.
You can do all that stuff if you want, but you also have to be like, if we want to build a pipeline as a country, give me a break. That should just be non-negotiable. It's being built. It's being built right now at this time. Let's work together.
These existing agreements and the work we have to continue to invest in addressing the existing shipping traffic as well as implementing marine protected areas along the Haida Gwaii North Coast and Central Coast.
So where does this relationship build?
The title of this video, Coastal First Nations Tell Carney They Won't Change Opposition to Pipeline. You would barely even know that from watching this video. This sounds like two people just having a casual conversation about how things are going on the coast of British Columbia.
Go from here? I know this was the first. Where does this relationship building go from here? I know this was the first face-to-face, and they came to you on the way to China, which I know was an important thing to see happen. What's the next step? Presumably, this is not a one-off, that there will be more meetings. Where does it go from here, Gabrice?
Well, it was an important sign of respect by Prime Minister Carney to accept the invitation that we were making, well, we've made personally and publicly in response to the MOU. Next is to follow up on the discussions and the commitments that were made to really pick up the pace of implementation of our agreements and move that work forward. And, as that begins to accelerate and unfold.
Sorry, but I'm calling selfish. It sounds like his point of view is we want to get things from Canada, but we don't want to give anything to Canada. That's what this sounds like to me.
We will need to be in constant dialogue and checking in as the nation building projects on the major projects list continue to progress and ensure that there is good communication and this relationship continues to build as those processes unfold.
Okay, I know you said you wanted to leave it to the government to announce what they've decided on. I'm not trying to trap you or trick you, because they've sent us a statement, and they talk about the Prime Minister committed to renewing funding for the ocean protection plan that we talked about, and coming back with something in 26-27.
Okay, so that's a thing that the government is going to help the First Nations with, I suppose. You could argue that's helping the ocean as well, but
Statement, and they talk about the Prime Minister committed to renewing funding for the ocean protection plan that we talked about, and coming back with something in 26.
renewed funding for the ocean protection plan. I'm assuming this guy on screen representing the First Nation wants that.
27, reaffirm the commitment to conserving 30% of land and water by 2030.
That sounds like something the First Nations would want. Reaffirm this plan.
30% of land and water by 2030, including working with the First Nations on identified marine protected areas in the Great Bear Sea.
Sounds like something the First Nations would want.
And to strengthen ocean protection, they will also fund a marine traffic risk assessment study, extend the leases of 2 emergency towing vessels until 2028, and ensure that towing capacity is consistent with shipping activity.
Okay, so those 2 things I'm sure the First Nations would want as well. But when Canada wants to build a pipeline, they say no. This sounds so selfish. Just like, what the hell, man? Why not just, if you're so convinced that you don't want a pipeline, why don't you just become like an independent nation in Canada and have like essentially nothing to do with Canada aside from trade or work together on projects, but you get all this funding for these studies and then you say no pipeline? How unfair is that to the average Canadian taxpayer?
Assessment study, extend the leases of 2 emergency towing vessels until 2028, and ensure that towing capacity is consistent.
This says here, like, you wouldn't even really gather from this interview these headlines, but on screen here it says Coastal First Nations say they're concerned about environmental impacts of new oil pipeline. That's not really what has been said in this interview. And I blame the interviewer because you're not asking appropriate follow-up questions. You're just being way too respectful. I don't even think that's the word. You're being disrespectful to the audience by allowing this guy to just talk about whatever he wants and not ask any follow-up.
Consistent with shipping activity. Does that cover it, or is there more to come beyond that from today?
That does cover most of what was discussed today, and I think it's important for everyone to understand that those are, really pre-existing agreements and arrangements that this government is now really committing to. It is work that has been well underway, that that the nations have been leading and working with BC and Canada, but this will allow us to continue that work, but also the Prime Minister's commitment to, make it a priority.
What do you mean work? All the things he mentioned basically are just the government funding things.
Commitment to, make it a priority and to speed things up. He is an action. He's spoke about leading with action and results, and that's what we expect to see in implementing these agreements and being able to see those improvements on the ground in our ability to respond and look after our ocean territory.
So
why is the government supposed to do all this stuff for you? And then you just say, nope, no pipeline. We're concerned about it.
Final question before I let you go.
This interviewer is doing a terrible job too. This is so absurd.
So just as a final question before I let you go, there has been some criticism of the way this Prime Minister and the government under his leadership have approached issues with First Nations and Indigenous peoples in terms of consultation and meeting. But it sounds like today, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm wrong, that you felt respected and heard today. Do you feel better about things? Am I understanding this correctly?
We do. I think we see it as a sign of respect, and I think it's really important for us, and we shared with the Prime Minister our respect for leadership, for the leadership challenge that he faces in keeping the country together and responding to economic challenges.
I mean, what is this like the country's grandfather? Yeah, we feel respect. What the heck are we doing?
And addressing the budget and trying to make sure that you know, all
Yeah, because they own the land, not Canada under the treaty. I don't that's like a long subject. I don't think whatever the current agreement is in Canada, I don't think is working for most Canadians. There's way too much complexity introduced with all these land acknowledgements, these treaties, there's just way too many hurdles to jump over to build anything in Canada. And I think that's putting us at a huge disadvantage. Just compared to, obviously, the biggest comparison is America. They're right beside us. And in the last 20 years, they are eating our lunch economically.
of our, there's fragile systems right now, the economic system, ecosystems, relationships with each other.
Like we should work together. That's the thing that bothers me. But I feel like there's a lot of selfishness coming, and it's not even Indigenous people. It's just certain people in power, I think, are making decisions that are not to the benefit of the Indigenous people or to Canadians.
Relationships
Both,
between
you
the
know what I mean?
province and the federal government, relationships with Indigenous people. So we understand the complexity, the challenge he faces, and he got out the gates, trying to show that action and having to travel.
But it's probably ultimately Carney's fault. Carney is trying to be too nice, I think, trying to appease everybody. You're going to have to eventually make somebody upset to get some progress rolling. The only people, ironically, that Canadians, not ironically, but that it seems like the Alberta crowd, people in positions of power in Canada, don't care about offending people from Alberta.
The world and do everything, perhaps wasn't able to make those early contacts, but we're here now, and this reconciliation process is a journey. It's not a transactional relationship. It's something that we all need to commit to and keep working on to adapt to the challenges we all face.
Gagwis,
See the opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Well, Gagwis, it was good to see.
I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. I wish there was a better relationship with Indigenous people in Canada, and we could all kind of work together, but I don't like there's been so much framing in recent years of I get like there's been massive problems in the past, but it's just the relationship just seems like us versus them, or like these people and then other Canadians. Again, that's like the mentality of Canada that I have a massive problem with. Even other immigrant groups come in, and just a lot of like people from India live here. People from Pakistan live here. People from the Philippines live here. This is not, I don't think, healthy for a country.
See you again. It's good to speak with you again. This is Gagwis, president of the Haida Nation. Thank you for your time on a busy day, sir. We appreciate it.
All right, David, take care.
So what was the point of that? Was 11 minutes long. I think the entire interview, in my opinion, should have just been, doesn't even need to be a shouting match. Just, why don't you want a pipeline? Let's talk about that. But instead, it was just fluff.
So today's meeting with the Prime Minister, it hasn't changed the Coastal First Nations' objections to a pipeline to the BC coast. But how much does that matter if there's still no private sector proponent who's come forward to build the pipeline?
Okay, so again, I think his statement after the guy's off the line basically proves me correct from everything I was saying up until this point. The guy hangs up, then he turns to the camera.
So today's meeting with the Prime Minister, it hasn't changed the Coastal First Nations' objections to a pipeline to the BC coast. But how much does
that should have been the first question in that interview? What are we doing? Is this like, I think this is insulting to Indigenous leaders. Did someone ask not to ask that? Or do you just think he can't handle the fire?
Does that matter if there's still no private sector proponent who's come forward to build the pipeline? Okay,
incredible. Anyway, I don't know if Mraz, you're still here. I'll try to find that Power and Politics panel here now.
The U.S. president is urging Iranians to keep protesting as demonstrations.
I think this is what you're talking about, Emraz. I don't know if he's still here anymore, but I'll watch this anyway. This will be interesting. Okay, 12-minute video, Power and Politics. Let's take a look. Carney says today's meeting was about, oh, so this is actually, oh, that was probably from before, but the title of this video, Trump says North American free trade deal is irrelevant for U.S.
Okay, we'll move on to the next topic, and it's the Canada, U.S., Mexico free trade deal. It's up for review this year, and although it underpins the entire North American economy, President Donald Trump says he doesn't care what happens with it.
What's up, Emraz? Is this what you're talking about?
I don't even think about USMCA. I mean, you know, I want to see Canada and Mexico do well, but the problem is we don't need their product. We could have it or not. It wouldn't matter to me. I think they want it. I don't really care about it. No real advantage to us. It's irrelevant to me. Canada would love it. Canada wants it. They need it because we don't need Canada product. That's the thing. You know,
It's incredible the difference in Trump's stance on Canada from term 1 to term 2. He was almost like, I don't even know what he never really criticized Trudeau during his first term. He was almost, didn't seem like he had any interest in kind of being combative with Canada at all during Trump term 1 that I can remember. The attitude is completely different this time.
I want to be a nice person, but we don't need, I want to build the cars here, not in Canada.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his way to China tonight. There's his plane. This is a live shot. The Prime Minister will be the first Canadian leader to visit that country since 2017, a sign that Canada is ready to re-engage with one superpower while another one withdraws. Okay, Amanda, you mentioned the United States earlier. Let's start with you on this. I don't know what to make of what the president said today because he says versions of this so many times. But this is a delicate situation the Prime Minister is in, re-engaging with a country that not so long ago was maybe the biggest threat to Canadian security in some ways. I mean, what do you make of what the President said and the situation the Prime Minister finds himself in?
Well, if you ever needed evidence as to why the Prime Minister should be looking for partnerships elsewhere, it's a little more of what we're getting.
If you're in the chat, feel free to say hello, give your take. Either way, I don't care if you're left wing or right wing, it's all good. And yeah, if you could subscribe, that'd be helpful. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here. Okay, first person on the panel, Amanda Alvaro, former Liberal Party communications strategist. We got 3 other people. Apparently, according to Emraz, who's in the chat, who's the chat MVP. Well, I'd say Dave's also a pretty good chatter, so. There's one other person yesterday, I think, that chatted a lot as well, but Emraz wanted to watch this video, or he mentioned this video, I guess, with Lisa Raitt. I don't know. I'm assuming that he liked what she said, but I don't know that for sure. Trump definitely not all there. He will finish this term older than Biden was, and we all know how out of it he was. Yeah, that debate. I almost wanted to do like a restream of the Biden-Trump debate just to hear Biden. Like, you could tell in the first 10 seconds of that debate that Biden could barely walk. We finally beat Medicaid. But I actually like, I actually think Trump's a good leader. That's probably not the most popular take in Canada, but it's interesting to see what's going to happen with Trump in Canada. Like, I obviously wish Trump would stop the 51st state talk. I don't really know what he's doing with that, but I mean, it's definitely triggered the media, because you look in these videos, half the media videos, it seems like, are about Trump. So I like when the videos are more about Canada, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling now. I'll get back to this video.
And the situation the Prime Minister finds himself in.
Well, if you ever needed evidence as to why the Prime Minister should be looking for partnerships elsewhere, it's a little more of what we're getting used to on the daily, and that's, Trump's chaotic approach to any kind of trade negotiation. The unpredictability factor is so high that you.
I mean, she's right. Like that. Even though I think Trump's a good leader, I don't disagree with anything she said. There is a lot of chaos in some of these strategies. Raitt and Harrison are conservative beasts. Yeah, you're right, dude. Harrison yesterday, I was impressed with her toward the tail end of that panel, but I don't know much about either of these people, really.
You can see that the Carney government is really taking two tracks on this one. Track one is to continue to engage, obviously, with the US to keep those lines open, to be looking forward to a renegotiation of CUSMA. At the same time, really diversifying the trade partners, looking to our second largest trading partner, looking for new partnerships, expanding partnerships, new investments. He's going to China and then he's off to Qatar. And certainly meetings will be held in Switzerland at the World Economic Forum.
Is that our second largest trading partner? Is that China? That's interesting. Let's see here. Rank top 5 trading partners for Canada. Obviously, number 1 is going to be US. China, number 2. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Great. I wonder if China's been number 2 for... Yeah, so China's actually way ahead. United States, 62%. China, 8 roughly. Mexico, 3.7. The UK, 2.5. Japan, 2.5. So yeah, China's definitely like the number 2. But I mean, look at the US trade. Holy, 62%. That's like 8 times bigger, roughly, than China. That's crazy. You would need 8 Chinas to make that up. It's incredible how much we're dependent on USA, whether people want that to be true or not. And then the thing about USA, we're number 2, I think. Yeah, I think we used to be number 1 historically. But yeah, Mexico actually has passed us. But look, USA has a lot more, just a way more even distribution. 16, 13, 10, 4 Germany, 4 Japan. I wonder what China, or China's right there, 10. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, we'll go back to this video.
Forum. This has been his track, I think, almost since the beginning, is realizing, recognizing, and Canadians are certainly, I think, on side with this as well, that nobody can predict what will happen with Trump. Nobody can predict what will happen with the renegotiation of CUSMA. So you have
I agree.
to work these two tracks in parallel. And I think
I agree with that. I agree that you have to, if you're Canada, what are you supposed to do?
He's doing a good job of reassessing the diplomatic and economic ties to China and looking for opportunities to expose our own resources in some of those other markets.
Emily, what are your thoughts on it?
It's true. It's just the liberal mentality starts to eat itself because you go, oh, we're going to work with China. Oh, but what about all their human rights stuff? Like the woke people, or I don't even know if you call that woke because that's legitimate, but the Liberal Party, I think if it gets down to it, and there's lots of work with China, a lot of people inside that party will not like that. I mean, I don't in particularly like that either, but I think there's a lot of kind of paradoxes or like things that are hypocritical of one another within liberal ideology.
This one with the president today and where the prime minister is
By the way, if you're in the chat and you disagree with what I'm saying, that's fine. I love it. So if you can comment, you can even troll in the chat. I find that funny. Or if you want to say, oh, that take sucks, feel free. It doesn't just have to be stuff agreeing.
I cannot help but think back of just the recent meeting with oil execs that Donald Trump had over the situation in Venezuela, where you had this surreal situation where Donald Trump is saying, you know, this is the way we're going to run the economy, basically dividing up a country as if it was his personal territory, and actually having Exxon and other oil CEOs being, wait a minute, this is not necessarily how things are done. So this is not necessarily a safe way for us to have investments, given that the situation in the country is still very much unstable. You cannot just colonize like that and assure us that there's not going to be any resistance. Obviously, that's not exactly what any CEO said. I'm paraphrasing with my own mind. When it comes to
we're talking about the trade deal. Come on.
when it comes to Canada, It's a similar situation in the sense that Donald Trump is saying a lot of things. At the end of the day, I'm not sure that American CEOs are necessarily following his logic that charisma doesn't really matter to the Americans. So I think we're likely to have eventually a sort of a conversation, a similar surreal conversation in which, and we've already had some of those in which part of the American economy is like, but Mr. President, what exactly is going on?
I'm just going to interject just to let people know that's Prime Minister Mark Carney making.
When Trump calls it irrelevant, it's obviously relevant if it's like legislation that's in place right now or a trade deal in place right now. It's obviously relevant. He says a lot of hyperbolic things. I don't think he's ever like admitted this, but it's obviously to negotiate or distract sometimes. It's not irrelevant. Even Trump knows that. It's not totally irrelevant.
His way towards a plane. Sorry.
I do agree the Liberal Party at times is a little too tree-huggy and comes at a stupid price. That's why I'm happy Carney is the leader of the LPC, because he understands what doing business with China is. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not like I'm a right-wing person, but I've said this before, like on stream. Carney is a way bigger or is a bigger upgrade from Trudeau. I'm happy Carney at least replaced Trudeau, because Carney is, I think, pretty pragmatic. I think he understands the Canadian economy is not doing that well, and he's trying to put things in place to fix that. I just hope he's not too afraid to offend people in that path, because I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I definitely think that Canada should build the pipeline, things like that. But I do think Carney is clearly an upgrade from Trudeau. Even from the conservative point of view, I think just running against Carney is a lot more difficult. Carney's way smarter. He doesn't say a bunch of crazy nonsense in public. Essential, and is willing to overlook China's iffy labor and human rights laws to get a good trade deal with China. Yeah, and China has a lot of, like, there's like the Uyghur situation, which I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on, but you know, people have an issue with that. Yeah, I know, like, obviously historically, just the conditions a lot of Chinese workers have been really bad. China's got lots of problems too. Like, they're obviously a superpower, basically the world number 2 superpower, but this is a little bit of a different subject. It's not really what Canada needs to think about right now, but they have problems with their population growth. Like, they have a lot of people, but they had that one child policy in place for so long, and their population in China is predicted to drop off of a cliff. That's kind of true in a lot of countries, actually, but China definitely has a demographic problem.
Emily, I will let you finish your thought. My apologies.
Yes.
But
No worries.
the Prime Minister is about to leave Canada to head off to China. The first time the head of the Canadian government has traveled to that.
I think the pipeline will get built, and I think China will invest in it. That would be fascinating, Dave. That would be amazing. I wonder at what degree, if to the degree they're allowed to invest in it, maybe they're allowed to invest up to like 5%. I don't know what the rules of that would actually be, but that's an interesting take. I'll go to this, back to ChatGPT. Would China be allowed to invest in a major Canadian pipeline? Short answer, yes, but only in very limited circumstances, and a controlling stake in a major Canadian pipeline by China, especially a Chinese state-owned enterprise, is very unlikely to be approved. Yeah, minority, non-controlling stake. So I was kind of, I think that makes sense. Bottom line, legal in theory, highly constrained in practice. Control, almost certainly no. Small passive stake, maybe, but still risky. Yeah, but I could see it happening. China is too big of a fish for Carney to let go. That said, it's a lot easier to make changes on human rights violations by sitting around a table rather. Yeah, that's a good point, Amber. That's a great point. Rather than point fingers, which I think that was definitely Trudeau. Trudeau would do. I mean, Trudeau did say before he was PM that he admired China's basic dictatorship. You remember that quote? But I do think Trudeau for sure was like the poster child for, you did that wrong. You did, like, he just would do that. I think Carney's got a way more pragmatic. Again, like I'm a right-wing person, but Carney is diplomatically pretty like astute, I think. Even though part of me would want to say he's not, but I definitely think he has made, I think, 0 bonehead comments. Like with regard to that, like I think he's negotiated well, at least in public. I don't know about privately because things haven't changed a whole lot since he got into office. The Canadian stock market is up. That's one thing. So I don't know how much benefit you give to Carney for that. But yeah, maybe he said a bonehead thing or two, but I can't really think of one. 9-day trip may prove otherwise. Is he going to China for 9 days?
That country since 2017. Former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien was there last week or the week before. And Scott Moe has also recently.
That would be ballin', hey, to be the prime minister. Wouldn't that be fucking cool? Have like a bunch of people just watching you board an airplane. Wouldn't that be hype? And then some person like doing this to you, saluting you. Canada. This is a cool coat of arms seal too, this Canada coat of arms. I like that.
Last week or the week before. And Scott Moe has also recently returned from there as part of an effort to get the canola tariffs lifted. Mark Carney waving goodbye, giving a fist pump, I guess, towards the calf soldier there at the top of the stairs as he heads off to try to pull a very difficult relationship out of the deep freeze, and with some editorials from Chinese state-aligned media suggesting that he needs to be fair.
That's going to be a, what kind of plane do you think that was? That's going to be like, that looks like the Winnipeg Jets logo on the plane. Maybe I don't think that would be that, because it's some sort of Canadian logo, but how long do you think that flight is? Let's say he's in Ottawa, I'll assume. Where would he go? Beijing? I think that's the capital. How long would it take? How long would it take Mark? Oh my gosh, look at that. 14 to 16 hours of flying time. I did a flight like that once. Well, maybe no more than once, but one that was kind of that long once. Vancouver to Bangkok, Thailand was about 15 hours. Has anyone in the chat ever done a flight like that? It's actually not bad because you fall asleep. You get meals. I was actually really kind of nervous about that flight, about how bored I would be, because when I fly to Mexico, I hate that. It's like 5 hours, but the flight was easy because you fall asleep, you wake up, you have some coffee. By the time you're sort of out of your slumber in the morning or whatever, you only have like 4 hours left to go. Didn't fall in walking up the stairs either. Yeah, that's so funny. That moment was hilarious. The wind. Trump stumbled once. He didn't fall, but at least once I can think of he actually stumbled. 100% agree, but I'm a CPC voter who voted for Sheeran O'Toole, but voted Liberal the last election because I think Carney had a better resume than PP. That said, I was 100% voting PP if it was anyone but Carney running the LPC. Okay, interesting. So you're sort of more of an independent. I actually was not impressed with Poilievre in the campaign. You sound pretty politically, I'd say, somewhat similar to me. I am pretty right wing. Like, I just not on certain things. On certain things, I'm maybe more centrist, maybe more left. Even on like, I'm probably more of a populist, but I don't really know what the label is, because that name can kind of get drug into the mud of like, some people have kind of wacko theories, but like truly what the definition, I guess, would just be policies that are good for the average person. That's kind of how I think of populist. But it's Air Force CAF. Okay, cool. RCAF logo. Nice. That is a cool logo. Yeah.
Obsequious, it seems, in terms of divorcing themselves from the United States. So, sorry, Emily, back to you just to finish up your point there. I just wanted we wanted to note that moment as the Prime Minister.
Lakeman, hello, Lakeman says, send NATO jets to Greenland. Is that to help Trump or to get in Trump's way? I don't know. I think you mean to get in Trump's way, or I think you're saying that to, because I think NATO did try to bolster Greenland in the last few days to kind of protect it more, maybe to show Trump like, hey, we got this. You don't need Greenland. NATO can take care of Greenland.
Release for China.
I want to hear what
Of
the
course,
reporter said
I wanted
there.
to note that moment as the Prime Minister leaves for China.
Of course you did. I just think to finish the point that there are some elements of the sector of the Canadian-U.S. trade relationship. For example, the automobile industry, that's going to be very hard for things to go back to the way they were before Trump was reelected. But there are other sectors in which obviously the Americans do depend on Canadian supply. And that if you have tariffs, you do impact the price of goods in the US. Um, and that is just a reality that at some point, part of the American economy is going to have to make that point to the White House.
Yeah, Nathan, using that example of the oil executives, I think it was the ExxonMobil CEO said Venezuela is uninvestable, right? And Peter Armstrong was talking about this on the show.
He said that? That's interesting. I don't know that it will be forever, but because Venezuela has the most oil reserves on Earth. So in some version of Venezuela, it's very much investable. But those oil companies probably feel like we're not going to partake in some multi-year thing right now. I bet you that'd be the position of the average oil company. Why would we go into Venezuela when there's all this instability and it takes obviously multiple years and a whole bunch of capital investment to get things rolling there?
Yeah, and when Peter Armstrong was talking about this on the show, throughout all the trade hearings, every business leader who showed up, to the USTR hearing said, you've got to keep this deal. We build stuff together. It's good for everybody. And there is this divorce from the people who actually hire people and sign the front of checks and the White House itself when it comes to the path forward on all of this stuff.
Well, let's not get it confused. Trump was never all that great at business. So the fact that he's not listening.
Oh my gosh, man. I can't take these people seriously. He's not the best business person of all time, but give me a break with the Trump derangement syndrome. He's obviously good at certain areas of business, selling. He was good in real estate. Like he's got properties. Again, a lot of Canadians actually think that it's just, you don't become a billionaire without being good at business. Man, this guy's going to be hard to take seriously now going forward in his answer. Who's Emraz? Your rate still hasn't spoken yet. I guess she speaks last.
To the business leaders in the US, outside of the tech bros that are lining up and making algorithms work for him, it should be too much of a surprise.
Yeah, this guy just has TDS. It's not helpful. Like, you can criticize Trump without having Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, let's not get it confused. Trump was never all that great at business. So the fact that he's not listening to the business leaders in the US, outside of the tech bros that are lining up and making algorithms work for him, it should be too much of a surprise. I'm still trying to get over the idea that he said he wants to be a nice person. I mean, I've just never seen an administration filled with so much cruelty. Never mind, I mean, conservative, left, whatever. There's an element of cruelty within his leadership and the leadership of the people around him, and inconsistency over the idea that trading with
Cool virtue signals, bro. You've been talking for 30 seconds and you're just bashing Trump. How do Canadians benefit from this? Talk about the issue at hand.
Canada is important, and that America has all the natural resources that it needs and all the manufacturing that it needs, and they're going to start to make pants and running shoes again. I mean, yeah, devoid from reality for sure. All this to me seems about midterms. What is he able to accomplish, demonstrate to the American people? Can he get through the midterms and hold the House and keep the power that he needs to keep? If he doesn't, I think Canada biding its time on our trade relationship with the US is probably the smartest move we can do, and just kind of ignore the noise.
Is it though? Because if Trump doesn't, if the Democrats take the House, I think the Senate, I think that the odds right now are the Democrats rather are going to take the House probably. But I think the Senate is more 50-50. But does that even matter? Because to a trade deal, like a trade deal is done by the White House. Not, I'll double check that with ChatGPT. The Democrats win the House in 2026, the Senate. I don't know that the Republicans losing the House or the Senate will matter much for the trade deal. Yeah, the president negotiates trade deals. Congress ultimately decides whether they take effect. Okay, that's interesting. How it works. The president negotiates, Congress approves and implements. So if Trump has only almost certainly no, not as a permanent binding. Oh, that's kind of interesting, actually. Trump can negotiate with foreign governments. He can even sign an agreement, but signing does not equal law. Without Congress, has no lasting legal force. Congress can simply refuse to pass it. Let's see what it said about the House and the Senate. What are the odds the Democrats win the House in 2026? Odds of Democrats winning the House, 70 to 80%. Odds of Democrat winning the Senate, 30 to 35%. So the likely scenario would be Republicans hold the Senate, Democrats take the House, but we will see. Oh, I've hit the free plan limit. Responses will use another. Okay, who cares about that? Yeah, that's interesting. Sorry, the chat. I do think Trump ultimately understands some business. However, tariffs are going to do nothing but hurt everyday Americans. I think they've hurt and helped in some cases. They do get more tariff revenue. The American economy has not imploded with the tariffs. I think many economists thought the tariffs would be awful, but I mean, like what I'm saying right now is debatable. So who knows? We can debate this kind of out a little bit, but if you go, for example, to the American, like U.S., I mean, the stock market is kind of I don't think the stock market actually is that good of a representation, meaning like it just clearly benefits like the companies and kind of rich people that own stocks. But since Trump won, I mean, the market's been doing fine. Trump won somewhere around in here. This was like the initial tariff shock, but then it started to come back. But again, this is just the stock market, but it's definitely correlated to the underlying economy. But since we're here, actually, I will do a quick compare with, let's see how the TSX. I don't know if I'm going to get this, though, on here. Toronto, TSX. Stock market. I'm getting... Bear with me for a sec here. Yeah, this is quite... like this, it's not... There's no comparison, but our stock market in Canada has finally been doing pretty good. Check this out. This is just a kind of a crude, not the best looking graphically, visually chart, but... Look at this, 10 years. So this is Trudeau's entire tenure in office. It's essentially flat. Like that is not good enough stock market gains. You would have gained so much more money just investing in the American stock market during Trudeau's entire tenure. Again, this cuts off a little bit. Like it misses the first few months, but then Carney won somewhere around here, I think. Look, I don't know what the exact reason is, but since Carney won, look at that. For people who are at least Canadian investors, they've done great since Carney's been in. Vance, Prez, and Rubio as vice. That's what you think? Yeah, that could happen. I don't know. I think it'll be very close in the 2028 election. Or Vance gets elected Prez. I'm going to go back in order. think it is smart move to do. Yes, it would hurt. I didn't watch it. I seen it real fast. I think it is a smart move to do. Yes, it would hurt Canada in the short term future, but would most likely be fixed by whoever wins the next election. Do you mean like getting through a quick trade deal? Unless Trump somehow gives himself a third term. Yeah, Trump 2028. I don't think that'll happen, to be like, I definitely don't. I actually do think Trump will just legitimately at some point be too old. Because, age matters eventually. Even though Trump has a lot of energy, at some point, anyway, or Vance gets elected president, if Trump has war power, I think he can bypass Congress. That's what, yeah, you mentioned that yesterday, Dave. That's definitely a theory out there. I hope that doesn't come to pass. Oh man, if Vance wins, it's going to be a movie. Yeah, do you like Vance or not? You think that would be good? Carney confidence. Do you mean just like Carney has lots of confidence? Is that what you mean? Carney confidence?
Is open up as many conversations around the world, but also how wary does Prime Minister Carney have to be in dealing with China? We have a recent and long track record of unreliability, distrust for some solid evidentiary reasons that China is important, but are they a trusted trade partner? Can they be relied upon? These are open questions and they're serious.
Yes, but you need to trade with somebody. Canada is not powerful enough to just be snubbing our nose at every country. If you're going to diversify away from Canada, or America rather, you're going to have to trade with somebody. And you're not going to be able to fully diversify ever away from America. I mean, I pulled that up earlier in the stream. What was it? 62% of Canada's trade is with America, and China's around 8%. So, I mean, you can only do so much.
Questions, never mind the human rights and everything else that used to be the front and center of Canadian trade policy. It has obviously diminished a little bit, but I mean, Mr. Carney,
if he still has his faculties, he should be fine. Yes, but man, there is a difference between Trump 2016 and Trump now. I think Trump's a good politician, but there is a little difference in the way he speaks. Like, it's not, people don't, like, Father Time doesn't just, it matters how old a person is. And what will he be in the 2028? He'll be like 80. I would speculate, I don't even think he would want to run again, because he'll be able to live out the rest of his life being like the main Republican, what would you call that? Like a person that gives advice, advocate, advisor. Like, whoever takes over, if the Republicans win, if the Republicans get swept, then obviously you won't have much power. But I think for like the rest of Trump's life, he will be probably the number one Republican advisor, whether people like that or not, because that MAGA base, again, this could change if politically MAGA really goes down or whatever. But the MAGA base, I would say, like, whatever you want to call that, 30 to 40%, 45 maybe of Americans, it kind of is probably like a range. That base likes Trump a lot.
He's got and never mind the domestic, right? We've talked about this before. How does he keep Premier Ford and Mo happy if he makes some kind of deal on EVs to satisfy farmers on the prairies?
Yeah, and Bloomberg is suggesting that China is looking for that, an offer maybe to lower.
Exactly right.
90 million didn't vote in last election cycle. I don't think it will be close next time. We're talking about that'd be the US. 90 million? I think it'd be more than 90 million actually that didn't vote. I think half the people roughly vote. I think it's probably more like 150. But Carney gives investors confidence. Oh, okay, good point. That's a good. I think you're right, Amber. That probably is the reason. I agree with you. A lot of companies bought a lot of stock before the tariffs were put into effect, which made the U.S. economy look like it had a huge boost when in reality it was companies trying to get inventory. A lot of companies bought a lot of stock, like bought their own stock back, I guess, before all. Yes, but looked like it had a huge boost when in reality it was companies trying to get inventory. But the U.S. still has, I believe, the last time I checked, more economic growth than than Canada does. Compare U.S. economic growth. What am I doing here? Economic growth to Canada this year and also the last 10 years. I don't know if that was the most elegantly worded prompt, but we'll see what it says. Yeah, we'll come back to that.
The canola tariffs specifically in return for something on EVs. Lisa, I don't know how to interpret what the president said. I don't know if he's truly just bored and disinterested in CUSMA at this point, truly doesn't care, or this is posturing, or if it all changes tomorrow. How do you see it?
It's posturing, man. Like America or Canada is still important, and Mexico to America. They obviously are.
I think the tell is at the very end of his availability when he referenced the Supreme Court decision coming.
Mhm.
And
That's right.
I think if I could make a bold prediction, which I will regret probably, if the Supreme Court rules in his favor, I think you'll see him rip up CUSMA, and I think you'll see him unilaterally apply tariffs to whatever sector he wants to apply to in whatever way. And I think the reason why is they're treating the money from tariffs like it's a GST, like it's their own value add tax, and they're not going to want to give up on it. So I see
Look,
that
Lisa Rate's making a good point here. I'm going to get, because I know MRAS has been waiting for this answer, I think. But my problem with the tariffs, I would say, would be like they can be used strategically to protect certain industries, but it does give the US president a lot of power. When Trump can just go, okay, well, we're going to tariff you then. That does seem like it's giving one person so much power. How come that did not load? What the heck? So, and then now that when you get the next person in, like a Democrat, maybe AOC wins, are they just going to have this crazy tariff power? Like it does create a weird incentive, or like executives then can come and try to get favor with the White House so they stop a certain tariff. But compare US, I don't know, this is so slow. What the heck, Grok? I'm blaming Elon. Elon's sleeping here.
if he gets any kind of signal from the Supreme Court that it's, it's okay to do it, I don't have a lot of hope that any kind of negotiation is going to happen with respect to CUSMA. So we'll have to
It's a
wait
good point. She's making a good point. Like I don't know if I agree with her, but it's interesting.
and see how that goes. Can I just say one thing about Mr. Carney? I'm really glad he's going to China, but I think we should remember that it's not like we're going to China out of the goodness of our own heart. China has a bone to pick with us too. I mean, back in 2022, Mr. Trudeau got in a little trouble because they had a private meeting. He went to the press. Xi did not like what Mr. Trudeau said to the press. And basically that froze everything in time. That was it. There's not, he actually said to Mr. Trudeau in public, don't do that kind of thing to me. So I think the first principles for Mr. Carney is just to open up a line of dialogue, and maybe EV deals are way down the list. Maybe that's another trip. But certainly he's got to thaw out these relations and show him it's a different regime in place here in Canada.
But
It's a good point. Trudeau, I'm pretty sure everybody in Canada, for the most part, is so happy that at least it's Carney. Way more impressive than Trudeau. Have you ever driven in those? Well, I mean, I don't think I drove recently. Not drove personally, but took like Grab or Uber in those Chinese EV cars. I think the company is Baidu, maybe. No, BYD. What's Baidu? BYD. They're pretty nice. Like they kind of look like a Tesla. Maybe Canada will buy those. A bunch of BYDs rolling around in Canada. I'm gonna catch up on some chats here quick. Before tariffs hit, they didn't pay as much as they would with tariffs in place, so we won't really know how the tariffs hit the U.S. for a couple of years. Yeah, before tariffs hit, they wouldn't pay. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's fair. Trump gonna be the face of Republicans like Obama is still the face of the Dems? Probably. Like I don't see, because the MAGA base, Trump has so much favor in that voting bloc, and I think any Republican politician, if they want to win the primary and get elected, you almost have to be MAGA unless things change, which they very well could. Asia Pacific is fastest growing market, and we can be a big part of it. That's probably a good strategy for Canada to be a part of that. Yes, quite a bit more economic growth. I think he's training Vance to be president. That's a good point. He probably is. Canada and USA had similar growth 2000 to 2020, but since then the USA, yeah, you're right. Well, no, similar to, it's more like 2000 to like 2015, I think. 2010 even. Because yeah, like back in like 2000 though, we were similar, totally. And USA has blown away from us. Canada is cozying up to the communists. USA are going to take us over. Canada is, yeah, I mean, I hope not. That's, that'd be bad, obviously. I don't think that, like, I don't know how, to the degree you're joking or being like hyperbolic, but USA actually taking over Canada, I think would be like just an untenable situation. I think that'd be essentially impossible. 100% the U.S. is definitely outpacing Canada economically, but Trump is playing a crazy game of chicken with the U.S. economy, throwing tariffs at anything it hopes it gives the American a better deal. So, I mean, Trump is playing a crazy game of chicken. The thing is, he's like, a lot of people would say he's being reckless, and like maybe in some ways you could argue that, but so far it's kind of working. Like the U.S. economy has not tanked. Trump term 2, as I'd say, been a little bit economically at least better than Trump or than Biden, because the growth has been pretty similar, but Biden had a bunch of dumb inflation. Obviously, the Biden inflation was like, I think overall triple what it was during Trump term 1. And inflation in the US is still high, but it's a little bit, it's not even close to as high as it was under Biden. Meaning when I say it's high, it's like a little bit over 2%. It's not that bad, just that all that inflation from Biden sticks around. I'll play the video a little bit here.
Amanda, there is this push-pull of all of these things, right? That there's the value of the trade.
Here, Trent, you think that USA is going to take over Canada? There's no way that's going to actually happen. Trump will continue to troll Canada, but the like Trump's approval rating in the US would drop to like 5% if that became actual policy, because it would just be like, Canada is not Greenland. Canada's a massive country that would be so unnecessarily, for one, a lot of people would die, but there's a lot of reasons why that would just be such a nightmare.
And then there's the values of the country. And when we saw
Carney is going to sell us, yeah, I don't think so, but that would be crazy.
When Marie-France Lalonde and Helena Jaczek, ended their trip to Taiwan early to avoid unsettling the Chinese regime, because apparently that's a bridge too far. One may be trumping the other, right? So how do you calibrate this if you're the Liberal Prime Minister?
I'll come back to those chats in a few minutes. I'll just play the video for a little bit.
Yeah, and not only just that, but also concerns around what is on the table. So, of course, looking at canola, pork, and seafood, and those industries that have been hit hard by these high tariffs. And at the same time is the reciprocal, which has been mentioned, Chinese EVs. And what does that mean to the Canadian auto sector? So there's a push and pull around industry. There's a push and pull around human rights, as we saw through the two Michaels, the Huawei executive, which wasn't that long ago. And we understand that a regime like that can turn on a dime. So in negotiations that could occur today can be totally upended tomorrow based on human rights issues. So I do think that, there's a lot at stake, but at the same time, as the second largest trading partner, they absolutely must look to diversify these trading relationships. To be able to increase the diplomatic and the economic ties is going to be very important to Canadians' economic future. So I think, if you're going to, it's not necessarily a gamble, but if you have to push this one a little bit, this is the one to push in my mind, because it provides probably the biggest benefit, the biggest rewards, even if there are risks at stake.
Okay, we've got to leave it there because we got to get to
that was
what's
a good panel.
happening.
There's some chats here I want to reply to, but before that, I'm going to, I'll pull up another video here. Any recommendations on videos? Because I think that there's definitely some chats I want to respond to. I like a panel, even though in America, or in Canada rather, the panels don't seem to really debate with each other.
The rampage
So it's
lasted.
almost like, why is there even a panel if people are just kind of... Okay, power play with Vashi. Mulcair. I think I might have reacted to that video already. Yeah, I think I did talk about this one already. Let's see global news. We'll just get another newsworthy video cooking here. Carney meets Xi. We'll take a look at this video here.
It has been 8 years.
Well, here, I'll reply to some of these chats. Okay. Liberals, I'm not joking. I think I did that one. Trump is no more shrewd than Chinese political heads. Trust me. He's just running it like a game show. Is anyone out there like natural gas? It is trading at its 52-week low today. I bought. That's cool. World War III by 2027. I hope not. Drama teacher is less than doctorate in economics. Totally. WW3 is going to erupt this year. It is in the cards. I obviously hope not. Especially if they F around with Greenland, because that would for sure lead to trade sanctions on the U.S. Hope that doesn't happen. USA takes control of Greenland by end of February, maybe earlier. That could happen. See what the SC say about tariff. The SC, the Supreme Court. Love Carney, Hart. Thank you for watching, Xena. I'm not joking one, but are you kidding me? Hello, bonjour from Ontario, Canada. Hello, Random Reynolds. Thank you for watching. Liberals, Hart. Got to go. My right-wing friend enjoyed our conversation. Yeah, I mean, you're not probably here anymore, but thank you for watching, Dave. Canada, liberals. The United States now is a dictator, so does that not make the United States a communist country? I mean, they're definitely not communist, but I don't know. I guess you're saying dictators go in hand with the communism. I mean, you could be a dictator in like a non-communist country, I guess, because you can just have still a free market, but I don't know. I don't think that's, I don't know. Thanks for watching, but I don't think the United States is communist. Only thing keeping the economy going in the U.S. is the AI bubble. I don't even really disagree. I disagree because I wouldn't put it that strongly, but the tech industry is obviously crushing it. Agreed, hate him or not, it's working in my opinion. Canada real estate will fall hard this year. We cannot hold on. We built a very weak economy buying and selling homes, so sad. I agree. Carney's going to sell us. I don't agree. They are not from Canada. They are paid activists from the Rockefeller Group. Who are you talking about? Miss you forever. Are you replying to another chat? He's done everything he said that Poilievre said he would. So many dumb people these days. Love my country and my PM. Eric, you have one problem. You don't listen, Eric. Donald Trump says he's going to take us over. Tell me one thing Donald has said that he hasn't followed through on. He hasn't taken us over. Your own question basically refutes your argument. By the way, I love it. You want to keep trolling, but maybe make a YouTube video and expand on your views there, because I don't think it really makes any sense what you said. PP would not sell us the U.S. PP would sell us the U.S. Some people think Poilievre would sell. Some people think Carney would sell. The U.S. will not take Canada. The American population likes Canada, and even if Trump ignored the fact, he would not be able to ignore the economic sanctions that he would get hit with from taking Canada. I mean, that would be like I think the least of his concerns. It would be like the fact that his whole country would be like, even the mega base. There's no way. Like Rogan, all those podcasters. I bet you a lot of like Trump's base. I don't understand the trolling. I'm even trying to like look at it from the American perspective. I don't think it makes sense for Canada or for America to kind of be making like a pretty much an enemy out of Canada. I don't know if I would say it that strongly, but a lot of people would, and you could see why. But yeah, so I don't understand like his posturing there. Like it almost seems like Trump is kind of just willing in Trump term 2 to sort of antagonize every country. Like, are there any countries he hasn't? been hostile towards at some point. Even like I would say Israel, but even at like the one, I mean, there's that clip of him going off on Israel about not knowing what the F they're doing and Palestine. I guess Saudi. I don't think Trump has said anything negative about Saudi in a long time, if he ever has. PP would sell us out to the U.S. Coastal First Nations is paid. Oh, wow. Is paid from Rockefeller Group USA. I've never heard that before. All the bots you see these days are mega bots. Wonder why. But the U.S. could 100% take Canada. Just does not make sense. Like, I know, and like if that was their sole objective in life, sure, but they would lose so much public support. It'd be so bad. It'd be so messy. It'd be like, again, Canada is not nothing. It's a 40 million person country. And the other thing about Canada is we would vote Democrat. If we actually became the 51st state, there's no way we would vote Republican for the next 50 years. And we have lots of electoral votes. Not done. When Alberta leaves, we're moving to Alberta, not sticking around to find out how it turns out. Okay, interesting. Rate goes off on Cochrane. Where does that happen, Emraz? Like, is it a different video? Alberta. Okay, I think I'm gonna just play the video for now and come back to those chats. But is that a different video, Emraz? D Trent, smash the like button. This channel is on life support. Thanks, bro. I'll do this. First of all, D Trent, you're an anonymous chatter, so at least your picture is a dog. So if you believed in your views that much, you would say them behind a face. And then another thing, just because you said that, this is my main channel. 240K. I've been actually not even focused on it lately, but is that good, Trent? D Trent? Is this channel on life support? 240. 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. Where's it's fine. He control. My channel is like, this channel at least is not big enough. It's small, so I actually want people to troll because it's funny, and then also just more viewers and stuff. You just left. It's at the end. No, I didn't. The video ended. Emraz, like they might have cut it off, but did I? I'll double check, but I think that the video just cut off. Yeah, so I watched the rest of that video. What's front burner? I'd rather do a panel. Coastal. This video will be interesting because what I was talking about earlier. I'll play this. I'm gonna see if this is a panel first, though. Nope, this is just like a podcast or something. Okay, I'll play this because I was talking about this earlier.
For some more analysis.
Coastal oil pipeline can't proceed without First Nation support, says Indigenous academic. Why though? In the chat, do you think this is like? Does this make any sense? I feel like even if you're a liberal voter, why can this happen? Why can basically 3 people or whatever, some group of people, be against, like, just shut down a major project like this? It doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't Canada have its own vehicles, Canadian made? We could have our own vehicle using no gas or plug into the grid as needed. But no one cares to do something like that, would we? I think it's difficult, obviously, like truly develop a vehicle and for it to actually work, like to get enough consumer support for that vehicle. I mean, I don't know. It'd be cool if we had a vehicle, but yeah, I'm going to play the video. I'll get back to some of those chats, but we'll play this video. I definitely like talking to the chat if you haven't realized. Trent, where'd you go, bro?
Analysis. Let's bring in Daniel Sims. He is an associate professor of First Nations Studies at the University of Northern British Columbia and joins us from Prince George, British Columbia. And appreciate you being there, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
So you were listening in on that press conference with us. What stood out to you?
I mean, what really stood out to me is this contradiction that's existed as a result of UNDRIP, as a result of reconciliation between what First Nations want and what the national government wants, and how far the national government is willing to kind of push things when it comes to things that First Nations are opposed to.
And so, yeah, because, I mean, Coastal First Nations, I think they were asked by a reporter, like...
Yeah, Eshlimi, this is my take as well. I understand wanting to ask them one their support, but come on, how can a small group stop the economic growth? It's totally like, man... I think the position should just be, we're building it, okay, now let's all work together but it just, man, it's incredible. Because this is going to, even the fact that we have to sit here and debate this is wasting time. And if Canada actually wants to diversify trade away from America and even compete with America, because America might get those Venezuelan oil projects online, how it's very disadvantageous to our competitiveness to have to do this, to have this long ass debate about, man. I wonder what the true Indigenous support is too for pipelines. Like, take away the leaders. What does the average Indigenous person think? Because, I mean, it'd be good for jobs. Like, you could have a lot of Indigenous people working on the pipeline, stuff like that.
In on that press conference with us. What stood out to you?
I mean, what really stood out to me is this contradiction that's existed as a result of UNDRIP, as a result of reconciliation between what First Nations want and what the national government wants, and how far the national government is willing to kind of push things when it comes to things that First Nations are opposed to.
And so, yeah, because, I mean, Coastal First Nations, I think they were asked by a reporter, like, is there anything that will convince you otherwise that a pipeline could go through this coast? And it sure sounded to me like they said no.
Oh my gosh, that's brutal. It sounds like even the CBC is almost in a very polite way saying to people, why can't we do this? It almost sounds like this. I think the CBC is kind of on board with the pipeline. I see your chat here, Random Reynolds. If Alberta left, they would be paying out the rest of Canada for all the resources and lawsuits from the Aboriginals. I actually did a video on the chances just for fun, like a little AI kind of dumb video, but I think the odds of Alberta leaving are very low right now. It might pick up, but I think things would have to get a lot worse for Alberta to actually leave. I ultimately think Carney will go through with it, but if he was go around them this soon, he would lose so much party support. And he's already lost some members for even considering the pipeline. Yeah, like Guilbeault. I'm glad Guilbeault is out of the national spotlight. I think he's still an MP, right? But yeah, I mean, you're probably right, but I think we should just be building this pipeline like quickly.
Want and what the national government wants, and how far the national government is willing to kind of push things when it comes to things that First Nations are opposed to.
Venezuela oil dirty, infrastructure falling apart, oil exec have already said no interest moving to an unstable economy, plus would need hundreds of billions to upgrade. I think that, was it the leader of Exxon said that? I don't think, like, people like making money, so I think where there's a will, there's a way. I don't think Venezuela will be, will be unviable forever. And there's just also like maybe the second tier oil companies will be willing to take on more risk. I definitely don't think Venezuela is just a total non-starter. Alberta not leaving. Carney hasn't got anything done but air miles and fuel consumption. Nope, not wrong. Look it up, Trent. Trump is not a dictator. Trump is a dictator. I like it. I like the back and forth. Bank is going to crash. Trent is a bot gang. I already read that. MAGA wants a merge. He wants to, but he wants to troll the video you just left. It's at the end. Oh no, the Manman Hotel. Get frick, Trent. WTF. Why so dismissive about the self-sustaining vehicle? Are you talking to me? I don't know if I was dismissive. It's just, no, I think you're talking to me, or maybe you're talking to Chatter, but look, if Canada could do that, I'd be fine. But I'm saying, like, that's not like starting up a quick tech company. Making a vehicle that you say is self-sustaining is very challenging. And do you mean like the government will subsidize that because that's taxpayer money? Like, I don't think there's a market in Canada for a Canadian car company to actually do that. I think it would have to be subsidized. So I just don't think that's probably going to happen in the near future. But I don't know. Maybe we'll buy those BYD cars from China. We'll be a bunch of Chinese cars from China on the road. I don't know if they're made for winter. But I think even if BC and FN say no to pipeline, Carney will do it eventually against the wishes of FN and BC. I hope so. That'd be nice. I totally support a pipeline being built as I'm trying to live the Gucci life the people in Dubai are living. Yeah. The Native organization is just an NGO. It doesn't speak for Canadians or Natives. That's my point, kind of like, to what degree do Indigenous people support? Because it seems like every time there's an Indigenous person, a leader on TV, they're like a leftist. I don't see how that, I don't believe the average Indigenous person is that left wing. Or maybe the Indigenous leaders believe it's in their own self-interest to be leftist so that they can get more government benefits. It would take 10 years or less about the car. I mean, that's pretty long, but yeah, maybe. It'd be cool. I'd be in favor of it if it happened. I get you on that, but the thing is, American oil companies are in Canada. They would be shooting themselves in the foot and competing against themselves. Yes, but I mean, just any one singular oil company would be in favor of having more oil output, just more for them to sell. It's not really competing against themselves necessarily. I mean, maybe if they truly like get more oil out of the ground, they would just drive down the price. So maybe there's that part of it. I don't know.
And so, yeah, because I mean, Coastal First Nations, I think they were asked by a reporter, like, is there anything?
The Niska, this is actually a good question that this guy asks. It's probably as heated as they get in CBC. The Niska is actually a nation under their treaty. Yeah, I think there's quite a few. Oh, like, I think that's the person that was talking earlier in my stream, the Niska.
I mean, Coastal First Nations, I think they were asked by a reporter, like, is there anything that will convince you otherwise that a pipeline could go through this coast? And it sure sounded to me like they said, no, this is just, that's it. That's it. Is that what you got?
Yeah, apologies for interrupting you earlier. Yeah, that's what I got from the press conference as well. It's very clear that the nations are opposed to the pipeline. They're opposed to increased tanker traffic. And, they tried to make that view very clear to the Prime Minister that they are not interested in doing this and that they don't necessarily see it as a transactional relationship where a certain amount of money or benefits or resources can be provided to them to actually make them drop their opposition. They also just don't believe the technology exists to clean up the spill. So it seems like it's a situation where they're opposed to it. And I'm not sure how the Prime Minister would move forward with the pipeline and get their free, prior, and informed consent.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you see this playing out? Because, I mean, this is happening in the context.
Look how slow this is. What the heck? Grok is struggling. I think I'm out of ChatGPT. I think I can use it still, but I think maybe it just said it goes to an old model. Hey, thank you, Random Reynolds. Thank you, man. What the odds of Canada of a new major pipeline in 2026?
Text of a memorandum of understanding between the federal government and the
so
Alberta
basically
government. It
sounds like the First Nations are still just totally opposed to it. I mean, Yeah, that's, I would say, an untenable situation. Something's going to have to give. Someone's going to have their feelings hurt, or the entire country is just going to have to deal with America at an even worse position if we're not going to build more pipelines. How is this going to work? Again, my basic point on all this is, how can you be elbows up and against these pipelines? That doesn't make any sense to me. Some people have said, well, it actually does make sense. I don't agree.
For a potential pipeline to the to the coast. Doesn't necessarily have to be the northwest coast, but that's the preference of the Premier of Alberta.
Yeah, no, okay, Sue Miller, I hear your point. It's interesting, but my point is just that it's difficult to actually like make a viable car that the public actually wants. Like, I know you could do it, but how do you get the public to actually want it? It's got to be at least as good as existing cars on the market. Like, you're competing with Chevrolet, Dodge, Tesla, Ford. So yeah, you're basically saying like an EV vehicle. Personally, I kind of want a Tesla. Like, I don't have an electric vehicle, but I kind of want a Tesla, actually. That probably will be my next vehicle I buy. I want the self-driving thing. I just want to sit there and not drive. Does anyone in the chat have an EV or a hybrid or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it will actually play out, and that's kind of one of the big things that I'm curious about as somebody who looks at resource development in Canada, particularly with regards to Indigenous communities. As was mentioned, UNDRIP only requires that the free informed consent be sought, not necessarily that it actually is given. And so it might be a situation where the federal government decides to push through on.
Yeah, you're right. Eshelamy. Estimated, this is just ChatGPT, but it's kind of fun to do. Estimated odds based on current evidence. Scenario, formal proposal submitted, but who cares? We want actual construction, low to moderate, 20 to 35%. I mean, again, it's just AI, it's just a random, but I don't think that's acceptable. That's less than 35%. It sucks. Again, like I wonder what if this in a similar situation. What do you think Trump would say? Like, I honestly think if Trump was the leader of Canada and this was happening, I actually think one day in the middle of the night there would just be kind of construction crews working on the pipeline. Then he would get online and be like, "We're building it. We're building it. We're bringing in the military, and if you don't like it, you're going to prison." Like, am I wrong? I think that would happen so quickly. And he would say, we're going to make a great deal. The Indigenous people, they love me. Everybody loves me. And I have lots of great friends in the Indigenous community. And we're going to make a lot of money for everybody.
The project in support of Alberta, but it might also be a situation where the federal government is willing to.
Good cars already exist. Would be a waste of time to try to make a Canadian-made car. I mean, other than like for the national pride thing, you could put like a maple leaf on it or something, but you could there's probably some things you could do with like trying to make a car for cold winters. Maybe there's something that those other cars don't do to have it heat up quicker or something. I don't know, but yeah, there are a lot of good cars and a lot of smart people that work on making cars. It's the NIMBYs that are only about them, me, but don't care. Yeah, I agree. And that I would say that's happening. I don't know if that's your point, but like with this pipeline stuff, I would say the NIMBYism is there too. It's not obviously just Indigenous people or Indigenous leaders that fall victim to that NIMBY crap, but I definitely think it's true. Chinese EVs are better than Teslas. Have you been in one? Because they're definitely, I think they're cheaper. But they are, how much are BYD EV vehicles and CAD? Because compare these vehicles. Because when I was in Thailand, I drove in some of these BYDs. They're nice because I think they're cheaper, but I think the suspension of them was a little tough. Like when you hit a bump, the car kind of jumps a bit. So I don't think but they'll keep iterating on it, obviously, but they're cool. The BYDs, they have all this, these cool kind of fluorescent lights inside of them. It definitely feels like a Tesla. Okay, maybe they just jack up the prices if you want to buy one. And can you buy one here? I guess you could buy one and bring it here. These are similar prices to Teslas, actually. This is more than I thought. 40 to 45K. Yeah, Tesla Model 3, 38. I want this one, the Model Y. It's just a little bigger, but I thought BYD were cheaper than this. Would that be including like a trade barrier? How much money is a BYD car if you live in China? Yeah, so okay, this is cool. So for people who are in China, that's a very cheap car. That's under 10K US. For like, yeah, like I think that's like their base model. That'd be like the Tesla Model 3. That's incredible. Huge local EV supply and competition, government policy and incentive. Look at, isn't that cool? So yeah, you can get like one of these BYD cars if you live in China for 10 grand. And that's a new car. I mean, what do you get in Canada for 10 grand? What is the nicest car you could buy in Canada for 10K? What is the nicest car you could get in Canada for 10K? Include used cars, just guess, show cam. Yeah, you get like a used Toyota Corolla with 120 to 200,000 K. Honda Accord. And these are like 15-year-old vehicles.
Maybe not go forward with the project in opposition to Alberta. And so I think it's a situation where
I'll play the video for a little bit and then I'll get to some chats.
Decide which option is the best, recognizing that there's not necessarily an ideal option at the moment. It is also possible that if enough time is given, that some sort of agreement could actually be reached where the province of Alberta and coastal First Nations feel like they've been heard and that they do agree to what's happening. But I don't know how long that would take, and I don't know if it's actually possible.
Mm-hmm. And it's all happening in the context of Trump's trade war on Canada, on concerns around the economy. And, you know, we've just had this readout from the Prime Minister saying that their discussions focused on how the federal government and coastal First Nations can work in partnership to strengthen marine conservation, ocean protection, build a strong and sustainable economy. But then the next line is, our country's under threat, putting our economy, our sovereignty, and our way of life at risk. So when you hear that language, you know, does it sound as though to you that there may be a determination on the federal government's part to push some kind of pipeline through?
There may be, and that's really kind of the question I've had since Trump was elected and inaugurated last year. By creating this threat towards Canada, it really raises the question of how serious Canada is towards reconciliation, towards decolonization, and indeed towards kind of fulfilling the promises or obligations posed by UNDRIP. And I think in my own province of British Columbia, we had the Premier talking about perhaps amending or repealing sections of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People Act, which committed the province to actually following through on UNDRIP. And this was made in response to this opposition and other opposition as well. So, you know, it is a concerning time if you are somebody who believes that reconciliation and decolonization need to go forward or should be honored or should be respected.
What do you think happens next?
I'm not actually sure, to be honest. It seems like there's an impasse. So on the one hand, Alberta is upset about the lack of pipelines. This has been an ongoing issue for many years. And so it did seem like by having the minimum...
Why can't we just build the pipeline? You could do it. Just, it's incredible. I mean, again, I don't want to say a bunch of stuff I just said earlier in the stream. After this, I'm going to go look a little bit at some of the right-wing figures. Then I'll probably end the stream after that, but I'll go take a look at kind of what the right-wing YouTubers are talking about today. But why can't you just build the pipeline? And then the guy went over some of the other benefits that these nations get from Canada, but then to go around and just say no pipeline, how does that make any sense? Again, I just think it's selfish. It just sounds selfish to me. I think what one of the chatters, who said that, Reynolds, or about like the NIMBYism, it just, to me, it almost sounds like a rich neighborhood or rich people that say, okay, we've had a good life. All this stuff has happened to us. Don't build any more homes because we don't want our property values to go down a little bit. It just sounds kind of like a fat cat talking.
Memorandum of understanding that perhaps impasse had been, passed, that the province was now happy potentially with the federal government. Danielle Smith spoke highly of the Prime Minister, which she hadn't necessarily done in the past. But knowing that coastal First Nations are opposed to the project, then, creates this situation where the memorandum of understanding may simply just be a memorandum of understanding. It doesn't actually lead to the pipeline going forward. Again, there's also the question of whether or not the federal government will actually push forward on the pipeline. And with regards to either option, it also raises questions of whether or not there'll be any sort of litigation surrounding the decision to move forward or the decision not to move forward.
And we heard the First Nations leaders saying that they're considering those options should this go forward. Daniel, it was really...
Wow, so the First Nations are considering basically legal options if the pipeline goes forward. That's what that sounded like.
Creates this situation where the memorandum of understanding may simply just be a memorandum of understanding. It doesn't actually lead to the pipeline going forward. Again, there's also the question of whether or not the federal government will actually push forward on the pipeline. And with regards to either option, it also raises questions of whether or not there'll be any sort of litigation surrounding the decision to move forward or the decision not to move forward.
And we heard the First Nations leaders saying that they're considering those options should this go forward. Daniel, it was really interesting to get your insight. Thank you. That was Daniel Sims.
That's interesting. At least this guy, I would say, I think this person's pretty honest about the situation, about how the Indigenous, some of these Indigenous leaders don't want the pipeline, but a lot of people do want the pipeline, so we're kind of at a standstill. I think that guy was mostly reasonable in that framing, which that seems to be the point we're getting to, right? Where it seems to me personally, this is what I hope, that a lot of the people that are in the middle on this issue will become more pro-pipeline, the more it becomes like apparent that Canada needs the economic growth and we need to compete with potentially Venezuelan oil, stuff like that. But I'm still not optimistic, to be honest, unfortunately, on this pipeline. But I'll read some chats. I'll get to see what this guy's doing. Big, very big channel here. But I'm getting kind of tired, so I won't stay live for too much longer. But thanks everyone for being on the stream. It's been fun. My brother has a Tesla. Cool. Does he like it? Self-driving in Canada winters doesn't work. Really? Okay, that sucks. I think they'll be able to figure that out though. Like these things will keep improving. Chinese EVs. I read that one. I have an electric scooter, but EV doesn't work for my wife and I lifestyle. That's cool. If Trump was the PM, the pipeline would have been built day one. LMAO. Nah, you're 100% correct. Yeah, 100% you're correct. The snowmobile in Canada is our Canadian transportation vehicle. Yeah. You can buy BYD in Mexico and drive it up to Canada. Oh, cool. I didn't know you could buy in Mexico. That would include shipping most likely as well. But I wonder if there'd be probably tariffs or there'd be less maybe government incentive to buy it in Mexico, I'm sure. You can EV upgrade spy gear. Under 10K USD is insane. Time to move to China. I wonder if you move there, if you get that deal, or if it's only for like legitimate Chinese people. A used Honda Civic, facts, a 10-year-old Honda Civic. I'm not interested in being spied on. Yeah, with the China stuff. They get me with Clash Royale. They just watch me get made and suck at Clash Royale all day. The bot saw we had a brain and realized it was a waste of time. Who could not say better? Maybe they removed it. Cochrane getting roast 2 times in 24 hours. Yeah, I guess you're probably right, Mrouse. I didn't. Maybe it's on a different stream, but Carney actually lets them block the pipeline. I'll vote PP one time just to have it built. Yeah, I would too, actually. I think Poilievre has been pretty good on that issue. That's kind of why I'm a little bit more bullish on Poilievre lately. They can try to say no. The fact is they have to be consulted, but they do not have a say. The government can push it through. He chooses not to. I know. I wonder how long Carney will continue to kind of have that point of view. I voted conservative in the last election, and so glad the smart people of my riding, not me, voted and saved my awful vote. Like, it sounds like you like that. You're more liberal now, maybe, Random Reynolds. Yeah, I'm just gonna take a break from the chats, but I'm gonna play some of this video here from Moose on the Loose.
We can't change geography. We're not going to change decades and centuries, frankly, of relationships.
We've already got some major developments. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we're going to be talking.
So she said we can't change geography. I didn't see this panel. This is a different one that I watched. We'll see what this guy says, though.
Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, and opinion composition of the Conservative Party coalition. And so what we have here is the dark blue is the CPC base. So these are more hardcore CPC followers, conservative followers. You have more just typical conservative followers is this lighter blue. The gray here is the average of all Canadians, and then the purple are leftists. And we have mainstream media in Canada usually tries to report the facts fairly. And only 24% of the CPC base, essentially Poilievre, loyal followers think that the media is honestly reporting the media, which I think is actually kind of shocking. It's that high.
I agree. That's high to me. If those are actually like CPC people, the base, 24%.
Literally, we have CPC base followers who are
I would
not
think that would have been like 11.
On YouTube or not, maybe not on X or whatever, and they don't realize it. We got 35% of conservatives think the media is honest, and 62% of leftists think the media is honest. Just think of that. 38% of leftists know that the media is not honest, if that tells you anything. Moving
Yeah,
on.
but they probably think it's not left enough. I bet you that group's coming at it from a different point of view. Excuse me on the I kind of spit up there, but I've heard people criticize the Canadian media as not being left enough. We covered someone recently. I did Laura Babcock's reaction with Charlie Angus.
Canada has gone too far in accommodating different values and cultures. 78% of conservatives thinking it's gone too far. Only 50%.
I would put myself in that group.
Of leftists. That tells you a lot too. Half of Canadians, well actually more than that, 60% of all Canadians think we've gone too far in accommodating other cultures. Protecting individual freedom is more important than protecting equality. 60% conservative, 36% leftist. C-word change is an urgent problem that requires immediate action. 68% of the leftists and 36% of conservatives. Provinces should have more power in the federal government.
Look, DNL, he says, I've always been pro-pipeline. And then he says some other stuff, but I've always failed to understand the hate on for feds and the barrier in getting it done does not rest with them. It's a complex issue and First Nations have a say. I think the problem is if everyone adapts your point of view, the First Nations right now are just saying, no, we don't want it. So then what happens? Then we're at a standstill. We go, okay, you have a say and you said no. Then what do the rest of us do? What do we do when we're trying to diversify our trade away from America? So I just think there's like an internal flaw in that point of view. I mean, I appreciate your take though. Thank you for sharing it. With what is happening in Venezuela, Carney's hand might be forced. He is in a minority government and an election could be triggered. That'd be cool. Good point, Julia. That would be very interesting. That'd be cool. Yeah, that probably puts more pressure on Carney in a positive way, I would say. Why keep fighting about oil when there are better ways? We have so much free energy, but I think people need to fight about. Yeah, but I think the problem is we're not there yet as a society that we still need to use oil in the short to medium term. Legault is resigning. I saw that. That's cool. They can try to say no. The fact is they have to be consulted, but they don't have a say. The government can push it. Yeah, I already read that one. That's what happened last time when Harper pushed through the pipeline and was found that they didn't do enough consulting. I heard about that yesterday. I mean, I heard about it maybe a little before, but and end up losing the Supreme Court case. So the Harper government lost the Supreme Court case. But I'm sure that we have a pipeline, so I don't know. I don't know what we should do. That happened last time when Harper. Julia, I understand that, but I worry Carney may want to save face a little too much, not go through with the pipeline. I agree. However, I do think and hope Carney goes through with it regardless of FN wants. That's what I feel like that too. Thing is, like that's not going to end the relationship. Like you could just go through with it. Yeah, you don't like it. Well, that's just the way it goes. Not everything that happens in life you're going to like. That doesn't end the relationship. It'll be just a speed bump. Then you can get back to working together and supporting one another and stuff like that. But I mean, it just seems that, I mean, I don't want to get too into this whole Indigenous relationship with Canada right now because I'll just keep the stream moving. I think I read that one. It's a waste of time. I'm out of here. It's just another dead end. Okay. Watching. You sit down and you hash it out. You sit down and you hash it out. Okay. Well, I think that's what they're trying to do, right? But what if they just keep saying no, though? So I think you're on the right track, but I do think that's kind of been what Canadians have been doing. But I think right now, like in the video we just covered, that First Nations professor from Prince George, I think, was saying we're kind of at a standstill. Technically, they don't have a say. It's 100% up to the feds. Carney doesn't want a pipeline, FN, or scapegoats. Carney doesn't really. You think so? That's an interesting theory. Just because he's more of a net zero guy. First Nations cannot do it. They can make it difficult and have to be a consultant. Carney has been told many times he's using them as scapegoats.
Government, 62% conservative and 40% leftist. And moving ahead, we've got some updates here from Iran before we jump into all the other stuff. Donald Trump is coming to the aid of the people of Iran. He's canceled all meetings with the Ayatollah and all that. He says Iranian patriots keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the bad people. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless ending of life stops. Help is on the way, President Trump. And with that, we do see help on the way. They're moving over huge bombers that are, this one here is coming from the Qatar Air Force Base. So they're moving a bunch of pieces into position. So watch out, Iran. That's why America just the other day issued warnings to anyone in Iran that's American to get out of there. Now jumping over to Mark Carney's trip, I thought I'd just touch on this first. So Mark Carney is going over to Qatar after he goes to China. We've got this here back from December 9th. So just a month ago, Brookfield signs AI deal with Qatari company QAI to form $20 billion joint venture. Of course.
Yeah, I want to get to the part where the panel's talking. If he even does that, because I when I went to CTV though, here we'll play this. We just reacted to this video. It'll be kind of fun to see what. Oh, then it's at the end. The clips at the end that I want to see. I want to see what this. What's this guy's name? Moose on the Loose. Is his name Dave?
Suspicion about something, but just this alone tells you all we need to know about this organization, and clearly they're wrapped in with Mark Carney. Jumping over to this clip CBC watchers got here. Lisa Raitt calls out David Cochrane to his face.
Here it is. We found it, Emraz. We found it.
I won't spoil it. It is a beautiful thing. Something we've never seen here on CBC.
This is an old-fashioned conservation fight, on this particular issue. It's not about emissions and GHG.
So CBC actually did, like, this isn't in that clip. That's incredible. We just watched this clip.
Got here. Lisa Raitt calls out David Cochrane to his face. I won't spoil it. It is a beautiful thing. Something we've never seen here on CBC.
This is an old-fashioned conservation fight, on this particular issue. It's not about emissions and GHG for the most part. It's about what it would do to the natural habitat if something were to go wrong. So Lisa, the conversations will continue here, obviously. And I know you made the point about the signals it sends to investors and to capital, and they could be discouraging. So what is the next move? I mean, it was important for the Prime Minister and Minister Hodgson to meet with the people he met with today. What is the next move there if you're the government, industry, Alberta, and you want to try to move this along?
I think it's in the hands of Alberta, quite frankly. You need to be a proponent and you need to have a project and you need to advance it. I think my point, and I'm not deluded, Nathan, you know that.
Sorry, I wasn't calling you deluded. I apologize.
He meant diluted, like the bitumen. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
Not diluted. Diluted. My point being, gentlemen, that the reality is that, like I said, we don't necessarily have a project right now, but I also don't believe that we should not discuss the possibility of a project in the future. I don't like absolutisms. You're using the word impossible. You're saying the science will never change. Of course it can change. You can figure out a way to encapsulate it in clathrates if you want to, try to figure out how to get rid of the bitumen so that it's not going to wash up where it is. There's always work that can be done. There can be mitigation done with the types of tankers going up and down. Impossible is not something that we should be considering, because the other side of the ledger is what happens if that becomes the only game in town? What happens if that becomes the most important thing that we could possibly provide to the world? And yet we're all sitting here today saying it's impossible. I don't think everything is impossible, other than David saying something nice about the Conservatives. That could be impossible.
Oh, shots.
All right.
He can't.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That's about as heated as you'll get on CBC, but that was pretty good. And then they're all laughing. That was pretty good. But the thing is about, like, there's no. I made the point already before. I truly do not believe that the pipeline is not viable, or because there's no private proponent. I think there would be a ton of companies that would be more than happy, because companies are in business to make money, be a part of this massive project or major project. I think there'd be so many companies that would be more than happy to build the pipeline. And even if it was subsidized a little bit by the federal government because it was deemed in the national interest. I mean, Canada, we do stuff like that all the time. So give me a break if you say, well, it's not viable economically. Canada subsidizes projects and companies all the time. It would be no different than business as usual. Dave, that's where I'm reading the chats now. My sense is we're not working because everyone's too stubborn. I hope Carney can make it happen. Me too. He will pee off his Brookfield Masters if he lets it go through. Dave, that's where I seen it. Yeah, Dave, they cut it. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Vince. Thank you for watching. If you go ahead without First Nation buy-in, I believe they do have legal grounds to stop it. I mean, I hope not, but you might be right. I guess I'm not a legal expert. B, what do you think their reaction will be? That's kind of my point. I kind of talked about that before. I don't really care. I think it'll be a bad reaction. They'll be mad, but then the world will keep going, and there will be another thing to come together and work on, including that project itself. I think it's almost like what Lisa Raitt said about someone saying that it's impossible. I think Canada, not to get too philosophical, in the last 15 years, everyone looks at the reasons why things shouldn't work. And with Trump, he doesn't do that. He tries to figure out why things can work. And maybe some people would argue, well, he doesn't go through the proper channels. He's too chaotic. But I think Canada, the mentality in the country, it's too careful. We can't do that. We'll make this group mad. We'll make this other group mad. Stuff like that. So anyway, we as Canadians will be paying out more money to Aboriginal communities for the rest of our lives. We as Canadians will be paying. I mean, yeah, we pay a lot. Obviously, some person I remember made a TikTok video, I think. Lots of people in my comments were being like, First Nations people don't get any tax money, like as if the money's just falling from the sky. I truly did not understand their argument. I wonder but whatever, like, again, I do truly think, like, I'm actually, like, Métis, like, part, I am Métis, like, I have a Métis card, but I'd still say I'm white, but yeah, but anyway, I do have that Métis card, but I wonder what, like, but to me, like, I wouldn't consider myself, like, a full Indigenous person. I don't really know how to say it. I've never really thought about that much, but I wonder if people that think Brookfield is corrupt with Carney know it is kind of hard to do business around the world without involving Brookfield, who has over $1 trillion portfolio. I should learn more about Carney's ties to Brookfield. Is Brookfield, what is Mark Carney's net worth? many financial profiles reporting Mark Carney's net worth at around, so he's pretty rich, like 10 million Canadian. Pretty good. Brookfield Asset Management, owning, operating, and investing in long life, high quality assets. This is what I thought they did. I wanted to just be, so they own real estate, owns and manages commercial, office, retail, and residential properties worldwide. Actually, make it easier for me to. Yeah, renewable power, business model. So founded in 1899. Brookfield is like a global landlord. Infrastructure operator and renewable energy company, but instead of selling products, it invests in, manages, and grows big assets around the world to generate stable cash flows and profits for its investors. How many? +50 countries on 5 continents. AI is so incredible how quickly you can just get all this information. Joined in August 2020. Vice chair and head of ESG. Oh my goodness. And impact fund investing. Chair of Brookfield Asset Management around 2022 onward. Tenure about 4.5 to 5 years. Helped shape and grow Brookfield Transition Investing platform. Interesting. Okay, we're getting out of the CTV clip.
He can't say anything. The dude is just frozen. He doesn't know what to say to that. You know, if he really wanted to, he could have said something nice right there. He said, oh, Pierre Poilievre is a good leader. Like, he could have said something. He's not going to say that because he's paid off by the Liberals. Of course he's not going to. The media is corrupt. I can't believe she said that. They're all having a laugh about it too.
Other than David saying something nice about the Conservatives, that could be impossible.
oh, shots.
All right.
He doesn't even say shots fired. Yeah, he doesn't even know what to say. Global crooks. That's another rabbit hole. Carney wanted to make it happen. The Canadian pension plan has been investing into BF far before Carney was PM too. That's interesting. This is why I can never be PM. Way too much brain power needed.
What is?
Well, yes, but are you sure? Because Trudeau is prime minister. And everyone knows like the crazy stuff he said, I think. The water bottle, drink bottle boxes, that clip.
Statement. David Cochrane left dumbfounded. Now that's one for the history books. That really is just right to his face. We've also got conservative Larissa Whaler here dropping some serious truth bombs. Look at their faces as she's talking.
Larissa, I'll start with you on this one. And let's just start with the Trump factor, for example. I think as Annie laid out and others have as well, and Premier Ford did too, right? There is a difficult balancing act here in kind of, hoping for more market access to China while not further aggravating Donald Trump, who still very clearly views China in some capacity as an adversary. How difficult do you anticipate that will be?
And Trump should view China as an adversary, and so should we. China is not a friend of Canada's. China and I'll get to the Trump piece, but China and Russia, for example, in February 2022, put out a statement called the New Era Statement, where China and Russia talked about how they're going to take over the Arctic and our trade routes and our critical minerals. And everyone's just pretending that didn't happen. It did. We can't pretend that China is this great actor when they're not. They have been caught, for example, dumping in car parts, coming up through Mexico, slapping a Made on Mexico sticker and bringing it into Canada. These are all things that China does regularly. And Trump rightly sees China as their adversary. So I find this timing of going to China quite curious at a time where we're in the middle of a negotiation with Trump. We're trying not to, poke the bear. And we can say that we shouldn't placate him or whatnot. But at the end of the day, the Canadian relationship with the United States is always going to be bigger than our trading relationship with any other one state. We can't change geography. We're not going to change decades and centuries, frankly, of relationships. It's not just Ottawa to Washington. It's province to state. It's family to family. It's business to business. It's that F-150 that crosses the border how many times before it's done? That's bigger than Trump, and it's strange that we are poking Trump in the eye and going to China right now.
You can see they're all dumbfounded too. They are all listening very intently to this. It got serious on this panel. The truth bombs here tonight.
She's definitely correct. I don't think that Canada can't go to China, though. Everything else, though, she said is true. And I think a lot of Canadians obviously don't like hearing that. Like I mentioned before, 62% of Canada's trade is with USA, and China is around 8%. So not even close, not even remotely close. How come I can't find this clip? I think I'm going to end the stream though anyway. But I can't find it. Maybe it's in here somewhere.
Just
Would it be this one? Oh, it is. There we go. Maybe next time I go live, I'll do this stream. But anyway, okay, I'm going to finish the stream. Kind of getting tongue-tied. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. And also, thank you, everyone, for chatting. Had a lot of fun. I'll probably go live again tomorrow morning. Have a great day.